She's one of the first people I met in this church. I met her and Rebecca at the Big Sky Retreat 7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago. And I fell in love with her immediately. We were in a session at Big Sky, and she answered a question that Mary Morrissey had posed. And I just thought, she knows something. And then I heard her cut up a little bit. I was like, she's funny too. So let's give some love to our own Cecile Eatherly. We love you, darling. She has no idea what she's in for.
And neither does he.
Welcome to Super Soul Wednesday. I'm Oprah Winfrey. And so Cecile?
But you're not getting a car.
No car. You get a car. You get enlightenment, and you get enlightenment. So when I was thinking about how to do this, honey, I thought, what do I know about you? And there were three things that came to me that I know absolutely to be certain about you. I know that you are a gifted teacher with a depth of spiritual wisdom. I know that's true of you. I know that you have a wicked, great sense of humor. And I know that you have a deep compassion for people's humanity. That's what I want to. I centered these questions around that. So if you're all right, I'm going to start with the first one. How did a sweet little nun from Louisiana get here?
Well, I wasn't from Louisiana. I was from Texas.
Oh, you're from Texas?
Yeah. I was born in Beaumont, Texas.
Yo, Beaumont.
Yeah, and, I can remember as a kid, little girl, and all the family would gather on Sundays at my grandmother's. And, it was a typical Cajun kind of gathering because it was expected, and they all had coffee with their mother every Sunday after church. And one of them asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said I wanted to be a nun. And they laughed. And so I kind of stopped telling people that. It's like I didn't want to say it, but, that's kind of what I wanted. But I knew that was going to be my path. I just knew it, And so, sure enough, that's where I ended up. And so I laughingly say that my first marriage was to God, and my second marriage was to a man who thought he was God. And that now he's with God, and he understands why it didn't work.
I told you. So I find this fascinating that you gave your life to God at an early age, and that has been your path. What are the aspects of your Catholic training and upbringing that still feel alive and vital for you? I know you still feel very connected to Jesus and to the Scripture, but you answer the question. I'll stop answering your question. What parts from your early religious training and experience still feel like they serve you now?
Just about all of it, actually. How do you differentiate? It's like you don't stop being Catholic. It's like you don't stop being Jewish if you're a Jew. And so it's like you kind of gather all of that and you keep using it and melding it and refining it. And I find that especially during counseling classes, that people are really glad that, that was my background because they feel a kindredness with me because I've been there. And I go there frequently every now and then again, because we're people. We're people. And one of the things that I really, really have gotten thoroughly convinced about, and there's no shadow of doubt about it for me, that we are the healing presence in the world. We are a healing presence in the world. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to say anything. We have to simply show up and shine. But we have to be aware that that's why we're here. We are here to be a healing presence in the world. And that's an easy job if you just show up and shine.
Wow. You do it beautifully. I think
thank
the
you.
reason I asked that question, because I know a lot of people, they feel they were harmed or damaged by maybe a more restrictive religion of their experience. And
Yeah.
you don't seem to have any of that woundedness
Oh,
around your
God.
Catholic. Oh, if you just not.
I hide it well.
Or maybe you've integrated it.
Well, the thing is, you can be wounded or you can be alive. I tell people, get off the cross. We need the wood, you know. You just, and so you've got a choice. You always have a choice. And it doesn't serve us to go around with that drama. It just doesn't serve us. It really doesn't. And I think you'll notice that as you go in your life, that you can be happy or you can have peace. It's just that simple. I can be happy or I can have peace. I can be right or I can have peace. And most of us want to be right, of course. Let's face it.
Can I have it all? Can I be bright and be peaceful about it?
It's your choice. But that's the truth. If you ever stop to think about it. You know, do you want to be right or do you want to have love? Do you want to be right or do you want to have a lot of peace? And we're always at choice, always, always. And then finally, you know, we get smart enough and we start surrendering sooner and sooner and sooner. So that's how it goes.
I gave a talk a few months ago here. I had this like blinding revelation in my own life that surrender could be the first thing you do and not the last.
Hello.
Typically, I save it to last. So what principle or part of unity teaching has been most impactful in your own personal life, in your walk with God? What's the part of unity teaching that really has changed you? You're not being graded on this, by the way.
I'm not.
And you're welcome to change your mind at any moment.
What part of unity principles? Well, one of the things that happened, the way I found unity was through this little book, and I was having a crisis at work. I was married at the time, and my coworker gave me the number of Silent Unity and said, "Go call this number." And I went and I called the number, and I cried through the whole thing. And when I got home the next day, we were waiting on my husband to be hired, and he's been interviewed and everything was going fine, but they hadn't called him in to hire him. And the very next day after that call, he was hired, and I thought, I got to go look out for that God. I mean, he was pretty fast there. So I thought, well, you know, that is pretty awesome. And then when I started coming, I cried the first 6 months at every service I came to.
I see nods all
I
throughout.
just absolutely, and I didn't know why I was crying. Tears were just rolling down my face, and I was just, you know. But what I recognized was that there was so much unconditional love here. I mean, they didn't ask anything of me but to be here, and they just loved me back. And I see you shaking your heads, and so I know you had the same experience, you know. There's just so much unconditional love. And so this is where we thrive. So if we don't want to just survive but thrive, you know, then you start coming. And so I started coming more and more often and more often. I even, you know, remember seeing Howard and Diane when they were over at the theater. And we were doing church out of a box, you know. It was just fabulous. But I would cry through every service for about the first 6 months. And I felt like I just thoroughly belonged here. Now, telling my family this was another whole thing. You know, it just, because my mother was quite a devout Catholic and died that way, and all of my family was Catholic. But finally, you know, they kind of started accepting, well, she's weird anyway, so she never did anything the way we did, so let her go, you know. And so it was like that for me. The unconditional love of this community was so overwhelming that it was like a magnet, just pulled you in, pulled you in. And so finally I started coming regularly. And that's how I think it was just the unconditional love, Michael.
And I think that is our fundamental principle, isn't it? Oneness. That
Absolutely.
that there is. Our new accounting manager, I don't know if you, Michael, he's wonderful. Isn't he fabulous?
Yes, he's fabulous.
He's a former, if he's watching, hi, Michael Alleman. He does watch us usually at home on Wednesday nights, but he was saying that he was a former evangelical minister.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he said he used to think that there was this circle, that those who had done it right were inside the circle, would go to heaven, and then there are all these people outside the circle. And I grew up with a similar kind of universe, and then coming here and to similar churches like this, there is no circle. Or the circle encompasses us all, and I think that is that unconditional love, that there is no separation from God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else do I want to ask you about your spiritual wisdom and being a teacher? What are the classes that you've loved to teach? What are your great experiences that you've had as a teacher here? Anyone that you want to share, any stories or anything on that?
I think my favorite class was the Healing and Wholeness class. I saw so many miracles happen as a consequence of teaching that particular class. And I don't teach this anymore. I don't teach classes because I have limited stamina, unquote. And so I choose to simply do counseling. But I miss teaching. I truly do miss teaching. And what was the question? I missed my mind.
Well, what was your favorite class? You said the Healing and Wholeness class. You really enjoyed that one, the Healing and Wholeness class. You liked teaching that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the Healing and Wholeness. There were so many miracles happening in that particular class, and I was never, ever a doubt in my mind that God was in control of that class, because it sure wasn't me. I mean, there were things coming out, and people were having experiences that it was a God job, and I was absolutely certain about that. It was a God job. And anytime I forgot that, I was given a real good awareness that it was supposed to be a God job. So, yeah, I think Healing and Wholeness was my favorite.
So, as I said, you have a wicked and great sense of humor. I have laughed around dinner tables with you till I was embarrassed.
One time I had gone out to dinner with my family and friends, and it was filled, and the poor waitress was just harried, and she was rushing around, and she finally got to us, and she said, "Now, can I take your order?" And my sister said to her, "Honey, you sure have got a good sense of humor." She said, "Well, if I didn't have a good sense of humor, I might not have any sense at all." So, I'm grateful for that sense of humor.
There's a line that you often are use. I'm part. You know what I'm talking about? I love this.
Well, I'm part Mother Teresa and part Mae West, and you never know which part's going to come out. For those of you who know Mae West, I mean, some of you chicks out there, you kids, you don't even know who Mae West is. But the other ones, we know who it was.
So, Cecile, you've had some difficult times. In recent years, you've had some real health stuff going on, and we've been praying for you, and we're just glad you're here. How have you been able to maintain your ability to laugh when life gets so hard, and make other people laugh, even though things are a struggle? How do you do that?
I think it's a gift. Mm-hmm. I think, and it's an inherent part of me. We had a lot of laughter in my family, on both sides of the family, and I just think that's part of my God-given gift, is to not take myself so seriously.
I think that's...
we take ourselves so seriously, and I was like, oh, molass. You don't take ourselves so seriously. It isn't that big a deal.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's a scripture, Proverbs, you probably know this, but laughter doeth good like a medicine. It just, and the science has shown it. It really does, doesn't it? It's healing. Some people seem to be just more naturally funny. Do you think it is is it just a gift? Some people have it and some don't. But can we all? I guess my question is, I just want your opinion. How can we laugh more in our lives? Any advice? I don't know where that question came from.
I try not to give advice. It gets me into trouble.
I think you already answered
especially if
it.
it's not solicited.
Well, I think you already answered not taking on yourself so seriously,
Yeah,
right?
you
Just,
know.
you can laugh at it.
Stay real. Stay in the moment. And just look around. I mean, we are given many opportunities to laugh. Many opportunities to laugh. And we need to take advantage of them.
That's it. And then the other thing I mentioned is that you have this deep compassion for people's humanity. I have a lot of my friends here in this church who have sat under your counsel. And that's what they have shared with me, is that you never judge, no matter what they're going through, that they're able to bring it into that sacred room that you bring. And you just, like you said, you make it okay. And so for me, that's the trick, is how do you see somebody's divine reality and their human condition, and how does that fit for you? How does that, when you're working with folks, how does that feel for you?
When I open in prayer in my counseling times, one part of the prayer is, I see you as God sees you, perfect in every way. Perfect in every way. That's how God sees us. And so how dare I see you any differently? How dare I? And so as I say that prayer, Spirit uses me. I've heard things come out of my mouth that I couldn't possibly know about the person sitting in front of me. And that's a God job. That is an absolute God job. And if when they come, I want them to leave with a lighter heart than when they came in. They have, that's why they're coming to begin with. I'm like a father, sister, confessor, Thank you. But that's the truth. That's the truth. We all have burdens. We all have secrets. We all have things that burden us. And I can't even imagine how some of my clients and my students have ever made it through what they're carrying. It's just that simple. Man, oh man. I don't know how they do it. Yeah. But for the grace of God. And so hopefully as I finish, and I always try to bless them. I try to give a hand blessing. It's no secret, I went to India with Howard and learned how to give the oneness blessing. And there are times when I lay my hands on their head to give them that blessing that I can feel. It's like their brain is absorbing the energy that I'm trying to convey. And that is such a gift. Oh my gosh, that's such a gift to know that that burden, that heart, that soul has been lightened, and they can go on for another day or another month, another whatever. What an honor. What an honor to be able to do that,
That is it. And how do we teach, I guess, like the question I wrote was, is self-compassion important? The way you see people, how do we lead people to see themselves as God sees them? How do we do that?
We have to start there. For the longest, I was able to I can forgive you so much quicker than I forgive myself. And I really, really, really had to learn how to forgive myself for being nothing more than human and being able to just be. I thought I had to do and do and be doing and doing and doing, and God didn't expect that of me. And I think when I had my surgery, I had heart surgery a few years ago, and man, oh man, you get a rude awakening then. You find out you've got to allow people to minister to you. that it's your turn to receive. And the last thing we want to do is receive. You know, if I can give to you, guess who's in control? But if I have to receive from you,
That's a deep surrender.
it's nothing but surrender. And so, you know, the quicker we surrender, the happier we're going to be.
So I think you may have already answered this too when you said we're just here to shine, but it's a good question. I'm going to ask it. What can we do to bring healing and kindness to this planet now that needs it so much? What can we do to bring healing and kindness?
I think just love and not judge anybody. Just love. Extend love to people. You don't know where they've been. You don't know, you haven't walked in their shoes. And if I can witness to you by being just present to who and what you are, if I can just stay with you as you go through whatever it is you're going through,
Yeah.
then what greater gift can I give you or myself? You see, it works two ways. So
I think that's it. Just be present and really see each other.
witness
Witness each other.
Witness each one of us. Witness to each one of us.
So these are just some odds and ends that I'm curious about. What's alive in you now? What's alive in you today? I know you've been on such a spiritual journey. You have gone to India. You've gone, you've done all this work.
Bali, I went to Bali.
You went to Bali, yes. Greece, I think you went to Greece, didn't you?
I went to Greece.
Yeah,
Lordy. I go to Greece.
But
Yeah.
what is it that's maybe what's your green and growing edge about? What's the thing that God is teaching you right now that feels alive?
To just stay awake. Yeah. Stay awake, girl. Just stay awake. I'm pushing real hard at 83, and I'm hoping to get there. And I don't know, Michael. I just keep breathing. Yeah, that's so important. Just keep breathing.
That's good. That's good advice. Well, that staying awake thing, that's big for me right now too. That I notice how quickly I go to sleep and how quickly I stop seeing people truly and how easily I go to sleep.
We get so self-involved.
Yes.
We just become so self-involved sometimes. And if we can get out of our heads and out of our grandiosity and just be present, there's so much work out here.
Yes.
There's just so much work. But if we can really take to heart that we are the healing presence in the world, period. We are the healing presence in this world. And we don't have to do or be or say anything. We just don't have to do that. We just have to be. And a lot of us are so used to doing that being is like, huh? What are you talking about? You know? We're so used to doing. We think if we can't do, then we're not vital. But that's not true. That is not true.
But we're a culture that puts our value on what we've accomplished. And so that's good. If you could sit on a park bench and talk to any person, living or dead, who would that be for you?
I think I'd like to talk to God. God, what in the name of heaven did you have in mind for me? What were you thinking?
That's good. And the next one's kind of similar. What would you say to 18-year-old Cecile if you had the chance right now? If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Girl, fasten your seatbelt.
What's the book that's changed your life the most? You can't say the Bible. What book has changed as a teacher and a spiritual guru-ess?
I hope my head will fit through those doors tonight. What book? I think the book, and Fairland, what was the name of that book that that couple wrote on forgiveness? Yes. And what was the what? That was it. I think that
forgiveness is letting go of fear.
Forgiveness is love is letting
we'll
go of fear.
We'll get it right. It'll take
that
7 of us, but we'll get the title
See
of that
how many
book
minds
right.
it takes to get us all here? Yeah, I think that. Yes.
Forgiveness is the greatest healer. Not that other book, this one. Both of them.
Yeah, it was really both of them because.
And they're both at the bookstore. Farrellyn, you are just working it tonight. Thank you. She's driving sales. That's good.
She was my mentor.
Well, my next question is, who's been your biggest influence? You can't say Farrellyn Mann. You can if you want.
Well, let's see, who has been my biggest influence? Lordy, that's a hard question. Who has been my biggest influence?
Maybe who shaped you the most into who you are? Maybe that's a better way to say it.
I think my trip to India. I think when I went to India, I was there for quite a while, and I saw extreme poverty, but the program was just so altering. I came back a totally different person after those few weeks there. And I can remember Howard had gone at the same time, and he was on another campus. And he started coming down the hall, and I was going this way, and he was coming this way. And I didn't recognize him. He just looked so different, and he didn't recognize me.
Wow.
And so I think that was it.
That was the biggest change.
Yeah, because it totally took you and turned you inside out, and made you question everything. And man, I just came back different, yeah.
So one last question. Have you ever seen Inside the Actors Studio? It's really, those are the great questions at the end. I was going to do those. What's your favorite swear word? That's not it. We're not going to do that in church. Did you ever see the Meryl Streep one? I couldn't believe she said that word. It was great. Anyway, but what is your favorite word?
Oh. It's a 4-letter word.
Oh.
Love.
Yeah. Well, Cecile, you are love. You give love. So who knows the unity blessing that that thing? Mindy, come and lead that. We just like to give you some love and appreciation. I didn't grow up in unity. I grew up in Science of Mind, so I don't know that thing. Here, show us what we do, Mindy.
So Cecile, you're invited to hold your hands up, send your loving energy to her. So Cecile, we love you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. Do that again. We love you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you.
Thank you, friends. Thank you.
That's our Cecile.